Thank everybody for being here. I'm Shannon Stoker. I'm the director of the instructional development for and course design at the Center for Educational Excellence. It's a long title, so I shorten it on there. But I want to be talking to you about teaching your best, teaching online, using intentional and purposeful practices to make sure our online courses are the best for our students. And full disclosure, I don't know everything. I teach online. I have a lot of experience with students in QM, which is our quality matters, our gold standard for online course design. But you have a lot of input as well. And so feel free to jump in and make comments or suggestions because we all have experiences here and they're valuable and they help us learn together. So here are our goals today. We're going to look at some of the challenges and misconceptions surrounding the online learning environments. Also, we're going to look at designing an online course, having alignment, which is a huge piece to your online course, actually to any course that you teach. We're going to look at implementing regular substantive interaction techniques to establish that instructor to student presence in the classroom, which is so important. We'll also look at educational technologies and pedagogical strategies that can enhance your course learning goals. I see a typo there. Funny, you can look at that 3 times and then you see it the final time when you're presenting. And then we're going to also examine potential AI strategies for instructor integration and student usage. Yes, we're going to tip our toe into AI. If you were looking for the magic bean for AI and online, I don't have it. I don't know that anybody does, but we'll tip our toe and look at some different things. This is a brand new book by Flower Darby. If you're not familiar with her, she is our online expert or one of the online experts that's out there. And this is her new book, The Joyful Online Teacher. It is a great book. I'm not even through it all. I've gone through so much of it and I have done a lot of putting my little markers in here. I don't know if you can see that and making notes throughout. It's been fabulous. It really focuses more on kind of the relationship between the student and the instructor and just really finding more out about how we need to have joy when we teach online. Sometimes it's a little overwhelming. Sometimes we're like, man, I really enjoy teaching in person. How do I bring that into the online classroom? And that's really what she talks about. And one of the quotes that I got out of there, it's fairly early on in the book, was this one: "No one is flourishing online." And I was like, what? How can that be? But in some ways, she's right. And she's not just talking about the instructor, she's talking about the students as well. It's no one, meaning anybody. I do think some of us are doing it well. I think there's definitely some at Tarleton I've seen that are doing it well. They're very effective at what they do. But I think in some ways, she's right. We're not able to keep up with a lot of the AI things that are going on, keeping up with our students. And so we just feel like we're muddling along, which goes to my next thing here, and that's our challenges. What are some of those challenges that we face in the online classroom? There's misconceptions about learning online. A lot of students think, I'm going to take an online course, it'll be easy. I can just sit there and click my way through it and be done. We get the same misconceptions about teaching. Okay, I'll just set my stuff, get it ready, and let it go. Just set and play. But really, that's not the case. We actually need to be more proactive in an online course. We need to have our things set way ahead of time. And actually, it's probably a little more work teaching an online course. And for our students, they actually need to be more responsible, more proactive than they would in an in-person course. So those are some of the misconceptions. Time management. Students often mismanage their time just in general. There are lots of things fighting for their attention, concerts, games, all sorts of things, and they have a hard time. They're on their own a lot of them for the first time. If you teach graduate students, they have got a lot of conflicting priorities, which is another challenge. They've got work, they've got their families. There are lots of dynamics that take place for adults returning to college. And again, those students that are in college, even our residential students. Also, assignment clicking. This is something that I've seen as, I don't want to say a new trend, but I've just started recognizing that students will go to that to-do list or their calendar and they go straight to the assignment. They don't want to go through learning the actual content, which is frustrating, right? We spend all of this time making sure that everything's prepared for them and go through the time to find all those resources. And then they don't even want to use them. They just want to go straight to the assignment and get it done. Then we also have that digital native does not equal meaning that they are have digital literacy. So a digital native would be our Gen Zers or our Gen Alpha that'll be coming up in the next 4 to 5 years. These students have had technology in their hands virtually their whole lives, and they get it. They're not afraid to try new things. They like scrolling. They spend most of their time on it. They can manage 3, 4 devices at one time. And so that's the digital native piece. But they don't have the digital literacy piece. They don't necessarily know how to upload documents or even format a document. They don't know how to work files. So many things that we take for granted, they do not have the capacity for it. And they're not teaching these things in the K-12 environment as much anymore as well. So we can't mistake them being a digital native for having digital literacy. And then, of course, AI, as I mentioned earlier, that is definitely a big challenge all over academia, but definitely in the online course where you don't have the ability to really see what they're doing. You don't have the ability to give them a piece of paper and make them write right in front of you. So those are some of the definite things that are facing us in the online classroom. So a little bit of a vibe check. Where are you with your state of online teaching? You can drop something in the chat, or you don't have to do anything, or just kind of think to yourself or unmute yourself and tell us. But do you feel like you're flourishing opposite of what Flower Darby's telling us? You feel like you're rocking it, just like this whale here coming out of the water and feeling great? Are you more like floating, like our Oscar P here, just kind of, I'm going along, I'm not rocking it, but I'm not just floundering like a little fish here at the bottom of the sea? Think about where you are. And if you're flourishing, I encourage you to share things with your colleagues, share things with us in the CEE. Tell us what's working, because really it's that hands-on experience that makes a huge difference to letting us know what really works in those best practices. Theory doesn't always translate to practical application. And if you're floundering, hey, we're here for you. We can help you. We'll connect you to people. We'll share our experiences with you. And that's what we're doing here. So we want to figure out how can we get from where we are floundering or even just floating to flourishing? How can we get that student when our mind is probably just asleep at the computer, to really engaging in your course? Here are some things that we can do from getting started all the way through. We'll talk about the end to where we're implementing instructional strategies. But the first thing you can do, and really this applies to any course, in person or online, I'm very passionate about course mapping because it's really setting up your course. It's like creating a blueprint. You think about a blueprint for a house, those are those plans before you ever get the 2x4 or the nail and the hammer. You sit down and you lay out with an architect what your house is going to look like or what the building's going to look at, and work through all the little kinks that could possibly happen. That's what course mapping is. It's a macro level view of your course. I think of it as a learning path for your students and for you. How are they going to learn? How are they going to achieve those course and module learning objectives? It also helps us avoid some of those superfluous or unnecessary things that sometimes we put into our course. When we're in person, it's real easy to sidebar and go, hey, let's do this activity, or let's talk about this, because you can bring students back in. But it's much more challenging to do that in online. You can actually get them off track, and then you don't even know if they're coming back on track. So really, you've got to focus and bring in the essentials, and that's what course mapping helps you to do. It also ensures alignment between your objectives, your assessments, your activities, and your materials. So again, when you have alignment there, you'll find that some of the things you do, some of those items that you don't need to be there, and course mapping will help you figure those out. And it makes building out the course quicker and easier. And my little pro tip here, design's not delivery. This is design. Delivery is what you actually do when the course is going, when the students are there and you're implementing things. But when you prepare your course like this through course mapping, it makes delivery a lot more effective. It ensures that your delivery will generally be smoother and lays everything out so you can go through in a process. And this is great to do always before you start the course. This is an example of a course map. If you've not seen one or not familiar with one, this is one of mine. And you can see here, I've got the module title. I've got the learning outcomes listed. They align with those module outcomes. So those course outcomes align with module outcomes. The assessments I'll use to achieve those outcomes, the activities that will support the assessments, and then the instructional materials. And you can see if you have this laid out before your course begins, you can just flow right through your course. Throughout the semester, you're just implementing these things and you know what you've got, you know what you need to do. You can make small adjustments, but basically the course is mapped out for you right here. And even within the course, I take a minute to make sure that if I've listed a module or an assessment, I make sure and list the module objective that aligns with that assessment. Now, our students may not appreciate it, but that's okay. It is there for them and it helps them to see there's purpose to it because they want to know there is purpose for their assignments. Which brings me to our students. Before you really get going in your course, you want to find out who your students are because that's why we are here, right? We're here for our students. So this was something in a book that came out by some of the QM administrators or upper QM executives. And it goes over really 8 steps to a high impact online course. And the first one, or one of the first ones, is a learner analysis. And I missed it at first. I was like, oh, who does this, right? But it really is a good way to learn about your students. And you want to know about your students before the course begins. We tend to think, okay, my students are in this course. You're taking it because they need to be here. But you really, sometimes that may not be the case. You don't know why they're there. You need to find out why they're there. If you're teaching an entry-level course like an English 1301 or in college algebra, that's a lot of students from a lot of different disciplines. Find that out. Find out what their program is, their major, what's their background knowledge, what are their experiences. Even ask them, what's your attitude towards English and math? It may not be great, but those are good things to know. Find out if they struggle. Find out what maybe their schedule is like, what their life events or what's going on in their life without getting too personal. There are questions you can ask, and that's what you have to do is ask the right questions. What keeps you busy? What are your interests? What are your hobbies? Things that you want to learn about them. Ask them if they have any experience with that subject. And then you can even ask non-content related questions. I like to ask my students sometimes, what is something boring about you? Or last semester I asked, tell me something you're reading, you're watching, and you're listening to. And that was great. You really learn a lot about your students asking questions like that. Dig a little. You don't have to get too personal with them, although they do usually like to share, especially some of those questions, because they like to share with you what's going on in their lives. So asking those can give you a little more insight to your learners. And another pro tip here, if you can, and I know some of our online courses have a lot of students, so sometimes this isn't possible, but if you can do early semester check-ins, it's a really great way to learn about your students. I've done them the last couple of semesters, and I give them a choice to meet me on Zoom, in person, a phone call, or I even give them the option to email. And what I'll do is I'll say, I'm going to email you whatever time we just choose, what we decide on. I'll email at like 3:00. I'll send them an email and say, I want to check in, see how you're doing. Are anything in the course you're not understanding, any way that I can help you? And I expect them to email me right back. So we're kind of having an email exchange. For those students at work, sometimes it's the best way, or students who have kids at home that they're responsible for, it's the best way for them to communicate. And they do it. It works. They will communicate with you. And I have just a quick little story about learning about your students. So every Sunday I have my routine. I go and get iced tea at the tea place here in Granbury, and I get a gallon for the week. And the last 18 months or so, there's been a young man in there that I found out talking to him that he goes to Tarleton. He's the cybersecurity major, and he and I talk every week. I ask him how he's doing and how he's going. He works for a cybersecurity company. And last semester, when I did a Zoom check-in with one of my students, we were talking about AI, and she said, I'm going to be working for a cybersecurity company and I'm really excited about it. And I said, oh, that's great. She's working part-time. So the next week when I went in to get my tea, I said, oh, one of my students is working for a cybersecurity company too. And I never said any names or anything. And he said, oh, is it? And he said her name. I said, yes. How do you know? He goes, that's my girlfriend. Oh, that is so cool. So you never know how you're going to connect with your students. And by the end of the semester, her and I just happened to show up there on the same day, and I actually got to meet her in person. So you just never know how things are going to connect. It's worth finding out about your students. Next, when we continue to talk about purposeful design, we want to be sure that our navigation is clear and predictable. We want to make it easy for students to access the course, to navigate throughout the course. We don't want this to be a barrier. They should be there to focus on the course and not hunt and peck for things in there. And sometimes what seems intuitive to us is not always intuitive to your students. And that's another reason why I do those check-ins early in the semester is I ask them, are you okay finding things in the course? Are you navigating the course? Okay, everything working for you? And we can organize these in modules. You can use weeks. Usually chronologically works best. We want to be sure we're providing links to all the resources and materials. We don't want to say this is the article and not provide a link to it. We wouldn't do that in the class, right? We wouldn't sit there and say, now go to the library and find an article. I'm going to wait for you. We would probably hand out copies. So we want to do the same thing in the course, provide all the materials that they will need, because if they have to look too much for something, guess what? They're not going to. They will probably just give up and not do it. And we also want to make sure that our module navigation, how they're going to progress through the activities and assignments, we want to make sure that is in a good order, it's logical and makes sense. And then also prerequisites and requirements. I'll talk more about that in just a minute, but those are ways that can help students navigate in the correct order that you want them to navigate through. And my pro tip here is it's really good. Have a colleague from another department, not yours, because they're familiar with the content, but another department, review your course. This is part of what QM does as the peer reviewer process, is someone from the outside comes in and reviews these courses. And when I go in and review a course from another institution, sometimes it's a different LMS, a true sign that they have good design is that I can easily click through and find what I need to find. I'm not having to go, what is this? Where are things at? And sometimes that happens. So having someone else kind of peer review your course just for navigation will really help to see how well that it is designed. Now, I've given you some examples here. This is something that I use, a lot of people use. It's recommended by Quality Matters, and that is a module overview. So it gives you just a direction of how that week is going to go. Think of your in-person course. You walk into your in-person course and you're going to go, here's what we're going to do today. Sometimes you even list it on the board. That's what this is, because remember, your students don't have that advantage of you walking them through the week. So giving them some direction that they're going to have for the week really is helpful. And you can tweak it how you want. This is just one in particular that I use. And I find it goes really quick. If you've got that course map, you're really just filling that in with what's on your course map. And then this is an example of those prerequisites and requirements that you can use with your modules. You can lock them out so they can't get to modules until a certain date and time. You can also require them to make sure that they go through the module before, or look at the module before. Something I have my students do is I have them, they at least have to open up that module overview. Now, can I guarantee they read it and go through it all? I can't, but they have to open that before the rest of the module will open up. And you can also set it to they have to submit an assignment. You can put an assignment at the end of the module, and they have to submit that before the rest of the module will open up or the next module will open up. So those are just some options to help you with the navigation and assuring your students will go through what you want them to go through. Now we're going to talk about delivery. So you've designed your course, you've got it set up, and now is where you're really getting in and you start teaching. And yes, you do teach in an online course. Absolutely, you do. We want to prevent that assignment clicking. We want students to engage and learn the content, right? It's so important that they learn this content that we have put into the course for them. And a lot of times students will bypass content and go straight to that assignment or calendar to complete the work. But using some of those module requirements, also doing a pre and post module quiz is a good way to get them to engage in the content. Put one that they have to do before they get started. It can just be very low stakes. You can put 5 to 10 questions, and then it can be for completion, just points for completion, just to get their brain going and thinking about what the content is, asking them some questions, see where they know. It's a knowledge check for them and a knowledge check for you, like doing a brain dump or something when you would do an in-person class. Tell me what you know about this subject. Also, think about using a lot of different resources, podcasts, videos, websites, interactive content. I say a lot, a variety of resources because not all students learn all best all ways. I'm someone who I like to see the content, read it. I don't necessarily like video because I feel like I lose my train of thought when I'm watching a video, but I can go back easily and look at something if it's in print. And you don't have to tell your students if you offer them all three of these modalities of video, a text, and a podcast, they don't have to do them all as long as they have the same content. What you can do is say, choose two, one to watch, one to listen to, or read and listen, something like that. But giving them choice is helpful. Pres- Avoid content overload. So again, going back to that, if you say they've got to watch and read everything, that's too much content. But if you give them a choice, you're narrowing that down. And we have to be very selective on what we put in our online courses because too much is just a lot of stuff. And it doesn't necessarily equal rigor. A lot of times it's just more is more. And in this case, less is more in an online course. Students are busy as much as we want them to love our online course and it be the main focus, it sometimes gets pushed to the side. You have to think about, again, going back to that learner analysis, thinking about who your students are. If you've got a graduate course and your students are working and have a family, this course is probably not going to get looked at during the day. It may not get looked at till 11 o'clock at night. If your students are residential, they live in Tarleton, live on campus, or taking in-person class and online classes, this class may not get looked at till the end of the week. So keep that in mind because as you make your assignment due dates and things like that, don't take it personal if your class is the last thing to be looked at. It's just, again, conflicting priorities, and this is not always front and center. So when they do get to your class, they need to know exactly where to go, what to do, and they have the content that is most important for them to learn. And you can also do that by creating micro learnings or videos, short videos, of course, less than like somewhere around 5 to 6 minutes, which is not easy for someone who likes to talk a lot like me. You can create micro learnings, which would be like maybe a short PowerPoint. Also, I've mentioned up here Gemini Notebook, which was formerly Notebook LM. You can put in your information and it will make all sorts of different things. It makes you PowerPoint types, slides. It will make quizzes. It will make videos. It'll make podcasts, so many different things that are available there. And the great thing is, it's not generative AI where it's going to pull a bunch of stuff. Whatever you load into that notebook, that's what it's going to use. It will not use outside content. It'll just use the content you put into the that particular notebook. So that's a great way to get some different activities and materials, and they're smaller, shorter, and students can get the content they need in a smaller a micro environment. Also providing videos for complex content and assignments. I used to do weekly videos and I would take time every Sunday night. I was in my office at home making these great videos, I thought, and students weren't watching them. So what I did find out they like to watch though is they do watch videos for assignments that are a little more challenging or have multi-steps or content that's more complex. So I started shifting what I made my videos on, making them short. And if it's an assignment that is a larger assignment or project, that's what I make my video on. And my video, you can check your analytics in Canvas. My videos watch numbers went from 2 to 3 up to 10 to 12, which it's not everybody, but that's a big improvement. So that's really important to think about. If you're going to take the time to make videos, be very purposeful and intentional what you're going to make those videos for. Also, we want to engage students in active learning. We'll look at some of those techniques here in just a moment. And the last thing I can say is don't be boring. And I'm not saying you're boring, but I know that when you go into an online course, you feel like sometimes it's boring. Show students why you love your content. Like I said, if you're going to make a video, go out and make it over something exciting. If your discipline is something that involves outdoors or something that involves actual doing, show them that you're doing it. Show them how you do it. Show them who you are, show them that you love the content, and get them to love the content as well, even if it is English. I'm an English major, so I can say it. So also remember the expert blind spot. You know a lot about your content, your students don't. So try to think about those things that they may need some additional support and supply them with some additional resources for that background knowledge. It's not required, but it's there for them to have if they need it. I used to say this when I was in K-12. I would tell my teachers, I'd say, we are not here to teach those kids who could pick up the book and teach themselves. And it's the same in higher ed. There are a lot of students that could go through our course without us. That's not what we're here for. We are here for those students who need additional motivation. They need our help. They need our support. And those students who are high achieving, they do need us too, because they want to hear us. They are the ones who are going to watch your videos. But we really have to think about those students in our course that are struggling and may not get it, because those are the ones that are going to need those resources that I'm talking about. Here are some active learning ideas. Journal reflection questions. I love reflection questions. I actually make my students handwrite them and scan them in, because I feel like even if they use AI to answer a reflection question, if they have to handwrite it out, it makes them think about it. And there's something to be said for that handwriting, that writing things out. And they always worry about their handwriting. I'm like, I don't care. Although I will say some of them I've been challenged to read, but I just want them to take time to actually write something out. Concept maps, those are a great way. Think of Venn diagrams or making a flow chart. Those are ways too that these are some things that can help skirt them using AI. Creating a project, student creating, make them create a video. AI, as far as I know, can't replicate them yet in a video. So have them create a video. Also, e-portfolios, giving them choice in discussions, using Nearpod, we'll talk more about in just a minute. Actually, John Hill in our next session is going to really, you'll see that in action. Also, guided notes. Instead of just reading something, give them some notes to help them guide their reading, and they can fill out. You can take a grade or not, but at least it makes them engage more in reading. Moving on to connection. So there's something called regular substantive interaction. And this actually is what separates what we used to call an old like correspondence course, where you would like mail in your exam and the professor would like mail to you the assignments. This is what separates us. And it's actually the government has put forth these guidelines that there needs to be regular and substantive interaction between the instructor and the student. And it's got to be initiated by the instructor. So we can't just wait for the student to email us and tell us what's going on. We have got to make some attempt to engage with our students and initiate that contact. So thinking back, sorry, I wanted to check the chat. If there's anything in the chat I need to know, if one of my colleagues will let me know, I can answer any questions or anything. So how do we do this? How do we initiate this interaction rather than students having to reach out to us? We can do some things like scheduled announcements. Tell students at the beginning of the semester, I'm going to send an announcement out to you on Sunday night and Wednesday, or you're going to get one announcement a week from me. So if you see other announcements, those are really important. We want to be careful not to overdo announcements, because students, it becomes white noise. They'll ignore that. But we do want to be sure that we communicate with them, and announcements are good to do. And if they know to look for those, sometimes I have students, I leave mine at 8 o'clock on Thursday morning. I'll go in to see when they're in the course, and they've been in there at 7:58, like they're waiting for my announcement. It's not a lot of them, but a few do it. Also, facilitated discussion posts. If you're in there, you lead a discussion post and you interact with them. Feedback on assessments. That's why we give formative assessments, right? We don't want students to find out for the first time how they're doing at that midterm and at that final. We want to be giving them assessments along the way, little checks along the way to see how they're doing, because they need to know if they need some additional support. You need to know if they need additional support. If you need to pivot, it's hard to pivot in an online course sometimes, but there are slight adjustments you can make. You can't make total derailments. You can't really get off the highway, make a U-turn and get on another one, because you're not with the students to know what's going on and try to transfer that. What's a change that drastic can be very challenging. So small pivots you can make, when you see there's things that need to be fixed.
Shannon, I
Structured
was
like
gonna
this.
say Shannon, I was gonna say that we don't have any questions in the chat, but I really do like the messaging tool in Canvas because students will have that on their phones and can see and can message back right away. And I find that to be really engaging for students, and it's also meeting them where they're at. So good job.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up, Angie, because a lot of students use the app and we can tell them all day long, you've got to have a laptop to take an online course, but they try to take it on their phones. And a lot of things in Canvas do not look the same. They don't act the same way as far as the way you interact with the content. And so that is important. A lot of instructors will let people know, let their students know, hey, if you're doing this on a phone, you may not be getting everything that you need from this course. So it's important to say that you need to have a laptop to complete this course because they will try to take exams on a course and we know, or on their phone. We do know of times that the exam has timed out on their phone in the background. The student didn't know it, thought they pressed submit and the exam went through and it didn't. And it looked like they never took it. That has happened a few times. So they need to be aware of these things. But yes, on the positive side, if that you communicate through Canvas, through the Canvas email, which is really more like a messaging service, if you communicate through that, it is right there on their phone. And if they set up their notifications, they will be able to get that quickly. And that's another thing you can do is make sure they have their notifications set to where they will get notified when you post an announcement or notified when some new content has been added to the course. And I think Pam went over that earlier. So again, responding to email quickly, doing the check-ins, the drop-in hours, maintaining your grading, a responsible turnaround. If we wait again till the end to do our grading and students how they're doing all along, that's not being responsible as an instructor. We need to do this as we go along. And I know we're all busy, but it's important. That's what we're here for. It's for our students. Also nudging. If you see a student maybe is turning in assignments late a couple of times and something just doesn't seem right, giving those nudges. And I've had to do that a lot. Well, I will email and not get anything back from a student, but I just keep doing that nudging if I see something's not right. And then, of course, we always have that option to turn them into the care team, which I've done also. If you feel like they're not turning something in, you're not getting a response through email, something just doesn't seem right, submit a formed request to the care team and they take it from there. It just makes you feel a little better that you've done something to see that they're okay, to check them. And then finally, probably my favorite feature we'll look at a little bit closer is the message students who. I love this feature on Canvas, and I'm going to show you that in just a moment. But just another pro tip, if you schedule your announcements in Canvas for the same days and time each week, you can actually do that ahead of time before the course even begins. If you look right here, you can set these, you can set them up. It's a little misleading in Canvas because it says available from, but that basically, if you could go through and create some blank announcements, just some announcements that you can go in and fill in later, but you can set all these due dates ahead of time or available from dates, and that's when they'll post. So that's what that available from means. It means that is when the announcement will post. So I'll go through and set mine up and get them ready to go. And then all I have to do is add content and they'll automatically post at that time. I also like to use emojis in my announcements. If this is not your comfort zone, don't do it. I like it. I feel it brings the announcement to life a little bit. And I let my students know I'm not using these all the time, but I do use them in my announcements, highlight some different things. And I also teach future educators. So most of my students are Gen Zers, and that kind of resonates with them. And it seems to work. I haven't had any complaints yet. So maybe they're complaining. I don't know. And then this is that message students who. So you go to this, if you're in the grade book and you put your cursor over the title of the assignment, the three dots, ellipsis will appear, and you'll see the drop-down menu and it'll say message students who, and there are a variety of options. I like to use the students who have not submitted yet. And I will usually send out a courtesy email on Saturday night if I see there are some students who haven't done anything for assignments, and I'll just send that. It shows you a list of who is going to receive that email. If I've had a student who emailed me and said, I'm going to be late or I know situation, I will take them off because you can take them off this list. And I just type a quick message that the title is filled in for you. It'll say regarding whatever assignment it is, this week's assignment number 4. And I'll put in there just a reminder, you have till tomorrow night. This assignment is due. And it is amazing. I could send an email with the same thing. I don't know how this goes to them in a special way or certain, I don't know. But I will get responses back from this so quick that I know, Dr. Stoker, thank you so much for reminding me. I'm working on it now. It's like it goes to them, it looks personal to them. So it seems to work. And you can also use it if they've scored more than a certain grade. You can put that in, all these different parameters, or less than. Sometimes if I have students that didn't do well, I'll send an email to them and give them an option for additional assignment or something to fix and so forth. So those are some options on Canvas that the features I find most beneficial for me. So we also want to be sure that we connect our students to each other because learning is a social process. So really students, as much as sometimes an online course, they just want to take it and move on, we need to make sure they have that connection with each other. They can learn from each other. They learn with one another, just like they would in class. So providing those opportunities, those platforms to do that. I didn't mention earlier, but one of the ways to find about your students are the introductions. And I know we think, oh man, we do these introductions every class. It gets boring to us. We think it's boring to them, but actually it's a way to find out about them and each other in the class. And again, a lot of times like teaching education, there are cohorts. So they'll go, hey, so how are you doing? I'm glad we're in this class together, just like they would in an in-person course. So create that environment where they feel comfortable knowing they've got people in there that they know or they've seen in other classes. Even if they're taking fully online courses, they probably have seen each other in other online courses. We can also set up a class coffee shop. This is just where I've got like a discussion board. It plays a little background music, actually plays a YouTube video with one of those coffee shop scenes. And I like to change it up based on the season. And I just tell them, hey, drop your questions here, drop your comments. If you want to connect with another student, you got to monitor it, make sure everything's going okay, nothing weird on there. But they don't use it a lot. But I have heard from other instructors that they do use theirs. So maybe worth a try. Nothing ventured, nothing gained, but I don't think there's anything to lose there. Also doing large and small group activities, creating like a blog for a group. You can just separate your students, divide them up into groups and let them keep a blog post on it, maybe something, a topic that you're covering for that week or a couple weeks. Projects, problem solving activities, let them solve a problem together, doing pair share, giving an activity to where each week maybe they share something different. I also like doing those scenario based problem solving, give them a scenario and let them all input or have them create a scenario. That's another great thing that you can try with generative AI. Tell them, use AI to create a scenario based on, we do ethics in education based on this particular ethical standard. Go ahead and have AI create it and then have your colleagues comment on what's best case scenario here. Collaborative documents, give them like a Google document to collaborate on. That also lets you monitor, there we go, monitor what they're doing. Discussions, something I do want to mention about discussions. Again, thinking back to your students, and this is where it's helpful to know about them. Students don't always, as much again, we want them to be in our course and say, I'm going to jump in on Monday and look at it on Wednesday and again on Thursday. That doesn't always happen. So if you're setting up a discussion where you want students to reply on Wednesday and then post replies to their colleagues or their peers by the weekend, that may not be realistic. Some students are not able to work in this online class until the weekend. So just be mindful of that. If that's what you want to do, that's fine. And just, you need to be very clear. Setting up those checkpoints in just those 2 different due dates and discussions is really important if you're going to have 2 different due dates on a discussion board, because it will show up on their calendar and they'll pay more attention to it. But just an option could be, if you're teaching a 16-week course, put their initial post due 1 week and then their responses the next week. And you may think, oh, it's dragging it on. Maybe, but you might be surprised. You might get better interaction that way. It's just a suggestion. I'm moving my course from 16 weeks to 8 weeks, and I don't think that's going to work because you just don't have enough time in an 8 week course. So I will be sure and set those dates, those 2 different dates for the week on my discussion posts if I want them to engage in the discussion before the end of the week. So just again, something to think about. It can be challenging for them to get into your course midweek. I'm also asking question and answers, just posing a kind of a big question, just an overarching question for the week that they can respond to. And again, I mentioned case studies, scenarios, and so forth. And a pro tip, just use caution when assigning group projects where students' grades rely on the work of others. That is a big deal. That was in K-12, and I noticed it's the same way in higher ed. Students, they don't like it when their grade depends on someone else completing a project. So if there's a way to give them a grade independent of what their other peers are doing, I would try to do that. And I know group work is important. It's important that for them to learn to work together. But again, in an online environment, you don't always know how that person on the other side of the screen is engaging with the course. Are they not able to get to it to the end of the week? Are they not able to get to it till the evening? And then someone is waiting on the other side for them to do their piece. So there are things that you can do to give them their individual pieces without them relying on each other for the grade. Again, just something to think about. Technology. So we all love our technology, right? Some of us do, some of us don't. But it's here. And if we're taking an online course, teaching an online course, we're engaged in technology. So, but we want to remember when we're doing things beyond our course or even when we're using the technology within Canvas, it has to align with our goals. We don't want to say, I'm going to use a discussion board so I can use the discussion board. Does the discussion board fit with your goals? Does it fit with your objectives? Do you have an outcome or an objective that talks about students discussing or interacting with one another? We want to be sure that our technology enhances what the learning, enhances what we have there. It's engaging, that it's not just something they're clicking through, but it actually is engaging. We engage them in the content and it extends the learning even beyond what we have in the course. We think pedagogy before technology. We don't just use it for using it. So it shouldn't be the focus. Again, attributes to learning objectives. Don't let it be a barrier. Don't give too many technology types, different types of technology in one course. If you're having them go out and try, do a Kahoot and have them do a Nearpod and maybe engages in your publisher's materials, that can be a lot. It doesn't seem like a lot to us, but it can be a lot to them. Remember, this probably isn't the only course they're taking. And so we don't want them to get that barrier entry fatigue, the too much, too many, and too complicated. If it's too complicated, they won't do it either. I know I get some faculty that have the publisher's content, different publishers' content, and they have to go through some different things. And they'll say the students aren't doing it. And then they came to us and said they didn't understand how to do it. And it's 12 weeks in. That happens. That is real. So you want to be sure and give clear, explicit instructions for use. Or my pro tip, even give them a video. Show them a video of how you interact and engage or get to the technology and how the technology works. Again, for some students, that may be the best way for them to understand. Also provide practice opportunities for new tools. If you use Respondus Lockdown Browser and the proctoring piece for your exams, give them a practice 1 or 2 question quiz. No risk, no grade, but just so they know how to get into it before they actually take a big exam using it. And again, if you can provide videos, we have videos on some of those things we can help you with as well. Please do that. Nearpod is one technology I will highly recommend. I don't really like to recommend too many specific technologies. I was a big Flipgrid user. I was all sold out on Flipgrid during COVID. I thought it was great. And then they changed to Flip and had some issues. And then Microsoft bought them. I don't even know where they are. But Nearpod is one that we have a license for at Tarleton. You can get you can get the full product. Again, if you stick around for Dr. John Hill's presentation next session, he is going to use it. There are a lot of great engaging activities that you can do with Nearpod And you can even set it to where it's student based. You can use it in person or online, and it's engaging. It kind of hits all those things: student interactivity with the instructor, with peers, and with the content. So Nearpod's a great one. And we're tipping our toe in AI. Yep, we're going to talk about it. It's an elephant in the room, I know, but I'm going to cover just two things really about AI. And that is one, your integration, and then the student usage. They're all over, and I don't want anybody to think they have to use AI, because they don't. And same with the students. I try to make sure my students that understand that they don't have to use AI. A lot of them come out and say they're against AI, and then I look at their assignment. I'm like, oh, how are you against it? Because it looks like you used it. Saying one thing, doing another, that's pretty common. But for us, there are a lot of things that are beneficial and they can help us save time. Like I was telling you about Gemini Notebook. You can put in your content. I've done it where I put in a video, an article, and an actual, because we study some different pieces of the education law, the actual law. It's a create me a podcast, something students can listen to if they're driving, or maybe they prefer the auditory learning. They will create slides for you, mind maps, flashcards, lots of different things. So if you haven't investigated Gemini Notebook, please get with one of us. We can help you, or explore it on your own if you're adventurous like that. It is a really cool AI tool. I think it's probably my favorite one. Also, generative AI can assist with assignment ideas, just creating different things, redefining your discussion questions, giving you ideas for group activities, scenarios. Those are just some different ways that save you time. I used to sit and try to think up scenarios. I would spend hours timing out different scenarios, and then I could just have AI do it. And it doesn't hurt anything as far as I tell the students, I have AI creating these scenarios. I check them, human in the loop. That's my pro tip. We need to teach our students that too. We still got to be in there checking and verifying, because I do have to make tweaks to them, but at least it gets me started. And then we also have our Tarleton AI Builder. If you're not familiar with that, this is basically where we have taken several generative AI platforms and the newer versions of them. So you can get all the versions. If you use like Gemini, it'll have the latest Gemini version or the older ones. There are some limitations to it. It doesn't generate images and things like that, but it is a way to use it that is behind our firewall and a little more secure. And I would encourage your students to use that one as well. Also, you can create custom GPTs where those chat GPTs are in your course and can provide students guidance. And we have a lot of people who can help with that as well. And then finally, student usage gives students guidance. So we need to provide them clear instructions on how, when, and to what extent AI is allowed in the course. Label all assignments with allowed AI usage. We'll show you some examples of that in just a moment. But again, teaching them about it. There's a study that came out in one of the online journals here recently, and it said students are looking to instructors for guidance on using AI, and particularly how it will be used in their field when they leave college. Whether we agree with it, I know there is a lot of ethical issues that can be raised. It's out there, and the workforce is using it, and we need to help our students navigate that. Even if it means just giving them information, giving knowledge, is it going to be used in the field when they leave when they finish their education, when they leave our university? How is it going to be used? How can you help them use it responsible use is really on us as educators, teaching responsible using. And then you can start shifting your assignments. Yes, if you just have them write a paper, it's a lot easier for them to use generative AI to write it. But if we look at reflections or adding personal experiences, there are things that you can do to help to navigate, to ensure that it's more them than it is AI. Also, having assignments where they critique the output. That's what I've had students do as well. I'll say, hey, did you do a scenario off AI? How did it look like it was supposed to? Did it work right? Did you have to tweak it? Let them be the one to be the human in the loop. And here's just some parameters that I set forth for students. This is just a generic one, but if you're going to allow them to use it, you can use these little color coding things. It's a good visual, but then explain it. Here's how you can use it on assignment. That would be yellow. red, it's absolutely prohibited. Then if they do use it on a red, then you can move to maybe the policies that you've implemented in your course and that Tarleton has. And then also just some different ways that you can have them tell you how they used it. This is an example of a template that you can have them complete. Yes, I used it. Here's which tool I used. I verified it, and here's the changes that I had to make. And these are the resources that I use for a lot of my online best practices and just different ideas come from AI. In addition, I use faculty as well. I hear a lot that you have to say and incorporate that into my best practices as well.